This is an aside, I think it's hilarious. When I did my PhD thesis, like I was one of the first to have one of the non-red colored laser pointers, and now they're useless, because you can't see them on this. Now, you have to go back to old school and use a real pointer. Right? Anyways, so as many of you may know me, my name is Chris Ho. I am the owner of Drug Design Methodologies, and my academic collaborator who's not here is Professor Jay Ponder at WashU. What we've been working on is technologies to help drug companies design drugs cheaper, better, and faster. Let me first describe to you the problem. The problem in drug design is threefold. First of all, drug design takes a long time. So on average, 15 years from genesis to successful drug at the other end of the pipeline. Secondly, drug design is fraught with failure, and I mean fraught with failure. So for every 24 candidates, drug candidates, only one of them makes it through clinical trials and gets it to the market at the very end. And that's a candidate, not an idea. So there may be thousands of potential lead compounds that go into every candidate, and then for every one of those, 1 in 24 makes it. So you can see how difficult it is. And because it takes so long and why it's so difficult, it costs a lot of money, okay? And these numbers are from 2010, so multiply everything by 3. So it's almost $6 billion now to get a drug successfully through the pipeline. So why is drug design so difficult? So first and foremost, the main reason is that there is no bona fide way of calculating how well a drug is going to bind to its target ahead of time. Okay? There are many attempts. People use regression, they use machine learning, they use scoring functions, force fields, what have you. To this day, if you plotted experimental results versus what the algorithm predicts, the R values are maybe 0.5 at best, okay? So it's slightly better than random. And if you are, let's say you're the head of a project at Merck, you have this whole table full of compounds here, and you have to tell your army of chemists which ones we should focus on and which ones we can just let go for now. Chances are you're going to be wrong. And you're going to spend a lot of money going down rabbit holes that end up in dead ends. Okay? So that's the problem in drug design, why it's so difficult and why it takes so long, and why it's expensive. So the solution, and I've been working at this for almost 25 years now. This is my PhD. I've teamed up with a longtime collaborator at WashU who has a better force field. And you're going to ask, what is a force field? A force field is just a set of equations that describes a chemical entity. Okay? These things describe everything from bond angles, bond lengths, atom collisions, electrostatics, what have you. That's not important. The important thing is we seem to have a physics model that is outstanding, that really outpredicts everyone else. So when you go through the literature and look up a paper that someone has published, okay, you'll see that they usually stack the deck. Everyone does because you want your paper to be outstanding. And so drug companies realize that we need an objective way to show how well these techniques are working. So there are these national blind challenges, and I forget SAMPLE stands for Statistical Assessment of the Modeling of Proteins and Ligands. Basically, they have a receptor and a bunch of compounds, and they know what the actual answers are, and they release it to the general public and say, everyone, take your best shot, okay? So this is a smattering of the best, okay? And you can see they're pretty much slightly better than random, if that. And this is us, at least on the last challenge, okay? So what I tell people is, we are hitting home runs at AA pitching, to use a baseball analogy. What we need to do is to raise our game to AAA and Major League pitching, i.e. real pharmaceutical grade projects and problems, because they're obviously uglier than things we see in the laboratory, okay? So if we can do that, then we can make a huge impact on the market. This has already been validated by the drug companies themselves. They have all said well, what if we had a test that's as accurate as what we can do on paper? They've shown that they could save almost $1 billion in the R&D efforts stage, the preclinical stage, and could probably speed up things by a factor of 3, okay? So they've already proven to us that we need a test this good, and we hopefully have this. So I'm going to play a quick video here, because this pretty much summarizes everything that we've done in one fell swoop.
A Washington University researcher has spent 2 decades advancing computer-aided drug design methods. Then in recent years, a breakthrough that may revolutionize the drug industry.
And I've had a hope for 20 years that something like this might be possible.
Jay Ponder, professor of chemistry, biochemistry, and biophysics, says he can now give pharmaceutical companies the ability to develop drugs cheaper, faster, and better. He's behind the creation of new software and technologies designed to improve calculations of drug target binding.
Being able to calculate drug target binding is the absolute most critical need in all of drug design. It's the fundamental, it's the holy grail of drug design.
Dr. Chris Ho's company, Drug Design Methodologies, teamed up with Ponder after the professor succeeded in this quest for the so-called Holy Grail.
This molecule, for example, is Lexapro, which is an SSRI antidepressant. And so if you want to design a better version, for example, of this molecule, you need to know how tightly it will bind to a receptor or a protein in the body. And so Chris and I have been working on technology to, by computer, estimate the binding of such molecules to a biological receptor.
This is the apolipoprotein E4. It's the one thing in your body that has the highest correlation with Alzheimer's currently. And so this is potentially where a drug may bind. It could bind in other places as well. Again, that is what drug companies do for a living, figure out where they could potentially alter the characteristics of a bad protein in some way. Our force field, the amoeba force field developed by Jay Ponder, enables us to model how these proteins interact with one another more accurately than current force field technologies.
So they're leveraging their software to help drug companies do it better.
It's just a matter of putting more physics into the model and calibrating it accurately. And so it's taken us 15 or 20 years to do that.
All that was needed to bring it to market was the computing power, as the calculations are computer intensive.
When we put the drug inside its receptor, we actually have to shake it around over millions of different orientations and average over that in order to get out the right number for the interaction.
Taking a supercomputer to handle, but for the longest time, there wasn't one.
It had a little bit of a feel to it of the old movie Field of Dreams. You know, if you build it, they will come. And so we've kind of been building this technology and working on the methodology, and with this big hope that eventually computers would become fast enough we'd actually be able to do this. And we've now reached that point.
They have video gamers to thank for it, for driving the market, pushing development of the very technology Ponder needed.
A so-called GPU, a graphical processing unit. This is basically a video card. It's what serious teenage boys who play video
girls.
games use cards.
Because a video card is actually a supercomputer that is doing all your calculations on those video cards that everyone uses to play Call of Duty.
A research group at Stanford University did the initial computer programming to get his group's chemistry model to run on the video cards. Now his lab and other collaborators are extending that work, programming drug calculations to run on cards.
There are more than 100 computers in this room, each with as many as 3 of these running modeling simulations 24/7. Ponder says the video card is 20 times faster than the fastest desktop computer, which makes all the difference.
5 years ago, they would take weeks for one calculation, for one drug to guess the target. That's way too slow. to be useful. Now, it can be done overnight.
Drug design methodologies converts the academic software from Ponder's lab into a commercial product for drug companies and researchers.
At the moment, drug companies have to synthesize all of these molecules and physically test them in the laboratory to see how they bind, and that's incredibly labor-intensive and expensive and time-consuming. And so if we can do all of that work by computer, it would obviously be a major breakthrough for the drug industry.
And he says they can make more effective drugs, limiting side effects.
The side effects are due to the fact that the drug not only binds to the molecule you want it to bind to, but it binds to other things. If you can make the binding of this molecule tighter to its desired target, then you can use a lower dose of the drug and you'll minimize side effects.
We have collaborations with several of the major pharmaceutical companies, actually the largest in the world currently. They are very interested in this technology because everyone wants to get that extra piece of data that will help them get that drug to the market that much faster and cheaper.
For Innovations, I'm Kathleen Berger.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, the first question is, no, we are not mining Bitcoin. That's not what everyone asks. But we use exactly the same hardware. Pretty much everything that they require, we require, and that's why it's a difficult time for us right now because all the graphics cards are being taken by them, and it's impossible to buy one. Anyways, so since this is a business talk, technically, I'm going to just quickly move on to our team. Team is me, first and foremost. I've had considerable experience developing computer-aided drug design software in the market. Two of my packages were published by a local company by the name of Tripos, which then became Certara, and now is sold to somebody else overseas now. And then my collaborator has almost 30 years of experience in computational biophysics. So hopefully the two of us can get this thing done. Our scientific advisory board, as I said, I've been lucky because I've been in this game long enough. You pick up a lot of friends, and because they're all desperate for some tool that will help them in their research. We have the heads of all the development at Merck, Eli Lilly, and Pfizer on our board. So, because this is a technology, okay, it's not like I can say, here, have my product and go with it. It's because this is definitely cutting edge, and when you're on the cutting edge, there's a lot of bleeding. So we need to bring this along very carefully because of all the failures that have come before us in the industry. So we're going to start with this little consortium. I mean, these are huge companies, but for us, it's the best start we can have. And basically de-risk the software. Okay, that's what we have to do. Again, we're hitting home runs at AA pitching, but we have to raise our game. After that, then we can focus on contract research, which there have been really large contracts handed out to our competitors, Schrödinger, which is based in New York. There's also a market for IP evaluation, which we are consulting on right now. And eventually we may end up just licensing the software. We'd like to keep it in-house as long as we can, because when you license software, it opens up a huge can of worms and other things to worry about, like support. And then hopefully exit. So I basically have painted a big picture of pessimism in front of them. So people are asking, so why do drug companies take a flyer on this? And besides the fact that it helps them get that little bit of data, we do have one huge success story to talk about. And that is, does anyone ever hear in the news about someone dying of AIDS anymore? No, not really. During that escalator there, that's when I went to medical school. It was an exceedingly scary time because you have to evaluate this patient, which basically you can contract this disease through an easy needle stick and you have no idea what's going to happen because we had no characterization of it. Fortunately, where the plateau happened, that's when AZT and the cocktails of protease inhibitors came out, and the rest is history. So basically, this is one of the greatest success stories in medical history, and now you don't even hear about it, which is great. And so the protease inhibitors were actually one of the first drugs developed using computational chemistry techniques. So we'd hope to replicate this for other diseases. I mean, who doesn't want to cure cancer or help cure cancer, right? Plenty of diseases out there. And we hope we can bring this to market and help in that process. Thank you very much.
Well, you got my attention. So, thanks for the presentation. Appreciate the overview. It's good to hear about what you're working on. So, apologize to those in the room that hate tech stuff, but you caught my interest. So, have you guys looked at the Volta Teslas? As
Yep.
far as, do you see similar returns and improvement that they're promising? When
So
they're...
we have to get our hands on one,
Oh, okay.
which we are going to, because the difference is, so this is the tech part. Voltas, if you look at CUDA performance, it's
Mhm.
about 20%, 20 to 25% over like a 1080 Ti, which is what we're running now.
Oh, really? Okay.
The, what's the word they use? Mental blocking. The tensor cores,
Mhm.
okay? Because Volta is designed for machine learning.
Mhm.
The tensor cores offer you a 10-fold speed up,
Right.
okay? The problem is, we would have to take, which is what happened when we first migrated to graphics cards. You have to take the algorithm and say, okay, which chunks of this can we drop onto the tensor core to do its thing? Programming a graphics card is not the same thing as programming your computer.
Mhm.
You can write code to do anything on a CPU. A GPU is a high-speed idiot. Basically, it is designed to do transform and lighting very, very rapidly, okay? Basically, everything that's needed to get your image on your computer onto the screen so that you can shoot your enemy, okay? So you have to figure out how to take advantage of the GPU technology. And so that's what we're working on. We have to hire someone and actually get some NVIDIA engineers to help us.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm sure you've already considered is the GPU NVIDIA Cloud is, at least for some of our applications, was a better value proposition than switching out the hardware we had, at least for the interim starting period.
Yeah.
You know, lifetime ownership, no, obviously.
Right,
but
because stuff changes so fast,
Exactly.
right? We don't want to drop 100K and it's like, oh, it's obsolete next year, which is pretty much what happens.
that's the thing.
And it also means you don't have to wait for it too, which is kind of a nice thing.
Yep.
So I was going to ask, it looks like most of fast multiple methods, I imagine that the immediate force field itself, this is all open literature kind of,
Correct.
of material. What kind of intellectual property protection do you have? Are you looking like first mover advantage in a niche field as your business model?
So the secret sauce is actually what I've brought to this project, okay? And for those of you who have, for example, done a master's or a PhD, scientific research is done by graduate students, and their primary motivation is to get the hell out, okay? So they do fantastic work, but the problem is you have bits and pieces here that work beautifully and no one encompassing. There's no easy button, okay? So in order to actually utilize this force field, to take a drug, okay, because of the way this force field works, its accuracy, you literally have to run quantum mechanics on each small molecule and then pull the force field parameters out. That is a hugely laborious, basically sitting there and looking up numbers and calculating them by hand. Currently, it takes almost 2 to 3 weeks per compound for someone who's actually an expert in the field to do. So I've one-buttoned that, and so literally it takes 5 minutes now, not including quantum mechanics time. Okay, so that's what the barrier to entry. Our biggest competitor, Schrodinger, that I mentioned, we've sent 4 postdocs there, but they're not using our stuff because it's too difficult to implement. They have their own force field that they use, to be technical, they use OPLS-AA, if you know the literature. So that's their baby, and they've spent like $20 million in scientific, hiring people to optimize it. So that's what the protection is currently.
Yeah, and I guess my second question would be, with all of the failures that have gone on in the industry, I work in a different field, but similar problem where you've seen a lot of people who have tried to attack the problem in the past, failed miserably, and it actually built up quite a barrier to getting in front of the people that you need to, and a much longer I guess, runway before you can actually convince people that you are doing good. Do you see that in your field as well?
Absolutely. You're preaching to the choir. And that's why it's nice to have these big partners where they... So the head of, again, it's all connections, right? So the head of Pfizer's, basically their head CTO was also a postdoc in our lab. Okay? So he knows what this technology is capable of, and he knows how much pain there is in raising our game to the next level. And so they're very patient because they just want something to succeed. So the answer to your question is absolutely. I
You
can't
have champions at high levels in these organizations, so you
Correct.
probably lubricated the way into.
Yeah, you have to
Sales.
grow it from within, success stories here and there, and then, again, Schrodinger, licenses are millions of dollars for stuff that's mediocre already. So,
Yeah, but they're licensing it.
but they have
so-
they have traction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's it.
That's probably more important than technology sometimes.
Correct. Yeah.
Hi, Chris. Sorry. Thanks. Wonderful presentation. One of the best I've heard today here. I had a couple of questions. I guess one of them has to do with your company. Are you guys an LLC?
Yes.
That is, you two guys are the only members of the LLC?
I'm technically the only member.
You're the only member. Do you have investors in your company at the moment? Have you been utilizing, I'm sure you have, SBIR, SCTR funding?
Yeah, Arch Grants, a LEAP award, which is WashU's version of the Arch Grants,
Okay.
and then SBIRs.
SBIR from NIH, NSF, NIH.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
Yes.
And I'm
No,
sure you did.
that's what started the company 25 years ago.
Right.
I got an SBIR.
Yeah, very impressive. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Great presentation. And I hear that patience is really the watchword in a lot of this industry, which is sort of refreshing to hear from a startup. It's definitely not my
Well,
world.
when you have no other choice,
Right. But given that, what do you think would be the one thing that would accelerate your business or your business plan the most at this stage?
The biggest thing would be getting our hands on a bunch of Volta cards, because again, it's just graphics cards, as the presentation showed you. That's what made this all happen. Otherwise, we'd still be waiting weeks to do a calculation. Okay? So better technology, and we're working on that. And the other thing is just getting access to data, and fortunately we have that. I mean, that's why it's nice to have big brothers and big sisters as your buddies, because they can say, well, here's some projects we have data for already. Take your best shot, and then just gradually work our way up.
Great presentation. So getting your hands on all those NVIDIA cards, and then programmers for the NVIDIA technology. So that implies, since you're 100% owned and an LLC, that you've got the funds to buy them immediately. Is that the case, or are you going to be on a fundraising binge if you find such cards?
I mean, we're always looking for fundraising, right? Right now, I've done everything with non-equity sources, and so the problem is literally finding graphics cards. I don't know if anyone here is a gamer, but it is really difficult to buy them thanks to all the crypto coin. And it's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is what everyone recognizes. No one can mine Bitcoin on a single graphics card. It's all the hundreds of little crypto coins that everyone's mining because they dream it's going to be $100,000 a coin. So it's literally supply and demand. Right now there's a big industry lull because these new chips are coming out, and hopefully by July, everyone's ramped up. I mean, we have partners at Worldwide Technology, and they can't get graphics cards either. So it's
Will you be at Invest Midwest next week?
it's a good, no, I don't know much about it yet, so.
Yeah, how much does one of those cards cost?
Okay, so retail, there's like the ones we use, the highest end ones, they should be about $700 a card. Right now, they're going for about $1,400, between $1,200 and $1,400, just because of, people snatch them all up and then sell them on eBay, right? So.
Hey Chris, good job. So it sort of follows up on a question asked earlier. You said you're hitting a bunch of home runs in AA, whatever. So is there a specific drug or disease you're focusing on that's going to allow you to sort of hit that home run into the majors?
So that's a good question. Right now, we're pretty much disease agnostic. We have some independent projects in cancer that we're working on. There's no one magic bullet. It's literally, and what I mean by harder projects, chemistry, if anyone remembers from high school, can be very ugly. Okay, there are some things that are very, very difficult to synthesize, difficult to work with, and so you can definitely stack the deck in your favor, and that's what we're sort of doing. You know, gradually stepping up, right? We're shooting free throws, then we're going to take a step back and shoot them, and then take a step, finally hit 3-pointers, right? So that's the game plan. So the answer to your question is kinda, but you know, we're going to cherry pick to help because we have to work on the physics. That's the biggest problem. Like we can't do the Matterhorn in one leap, right?
Do you have any applications in other types of chemistry? Detergents, herbicides, how big can you go in your scale of knowledge?
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention. The hottest thing in the market now is biotech, all right? Because everyone's doing immunoglobulins. And all those drugs that end in MAB, those are antibodies, okay? So biologics is the hot area right now, and this absolutely can be utilized for that market. Actually, Monsanto is also one of the players that we're working with. And so ag products, as long as it's either, you know, has to be chemistry based, obviously, okay? But yeah, we can apply it to almost any field that could utilize these programs.
Literal fields.
So, I mean, out of curiosity, why aren't you using this to do drug discovery yourself rather than selling the tools to other people to discover drugs?
So we are. Short answer to your question is we are, but we also need funding. So it pays the bills to, okay, so we're basically, the service industry is probably the best way to go about it because drug companies, it cycles. Everything in business, as you all know, cycles, right? For a while there, everything was, let's build everything within. And then it shifted to, let's outsource everything because, you know, you would spend all your money training someone and then they would just leave, right? So at this point, it's a lot of it is, right now it's 50-50. So essentially we would be partnering with drug companies. Like if you're interested in this, we can help you design it. We want a small fraction of the IP, okay? So in a sense, we kind of are. But we need to see other people's projects in order to really get into major league pitching. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you, Gus.